Hey guys, and welcome to a very special episode of the Captain Fizz and Mask Guy Show. Tonight, our special guest is the Grappler, Len Denton, and we'll be discussing his career and just having a lot of fun, especially for me. This will be very nostalgic as, Len Denton has went off and has wrestled many of the best known wrestlers of the 1970s and 1980s. So sit back, listen to our music, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Captain Fizz and Mask Guy Show. We are joined here by phone with Len Denton, the Grappler.
The Grappler, a legend in the professional wrestling business. He has worked in many of the what was called the territories and the good old days of professional wrestling. Best known for being in areas like Mid-South, St. Louis, the Carolinas, in Portland. He competed against some of the biggest names, in professional wrestling, I suppose you could say. Ted DiBiase, Junkyard Dog, Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant, Dusty Rhodes. There's even a legend that Jake the Snake Roberts accidentally invented a DDT while having the match with the Grappler. And then, of course, and I was shocked to learn this, he also had a matchup with Bill Goldberg for the WCW United States title. So that's pretty good. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the Grappler himself, Len Denton. How are you doing, sir?
Good, buddy. Yeah, that's probably one of the greatest introductions I've ever got. Thank you very much.
We definitely saved the best introduction for the best guest.
I just wanted to say again how much of an honor it is, sir, to have you join us on the podcast. We truly appreciate this.
Buddy, you're more than welcome. I'm proud to do it, man. I love the sport of pro wrestling. I love coming on podcasts and talking, telling stories, and bringing back those old memories,
Absolutely. So, I guess our first question is, how did you first get into the business?
Well, I was in Houston, Texas, and me and my dad, my father had met a black wrestler named Tiger Conway Sr., and he's doing some construction work for him, he owned a fence company, and he was building a carport for his fence trucks to park under, and his son, Tiger Conway Jr., was a wrestler. So I met them, and I was a young man, and Tiger kind of seen it, and he said, your son's a good-looking athlete. He might be able to make him go wrestling. That kind of stirred the pot, started it going. And then I got around town where other guys were wrestling, started training, and that kind of fired it off. So actually, my father got me involved in it.
Okay, yeah, I've actually, just listening. I actually have started reading your autobiography, which we can bring up later on in the show. And your father definitely sounds like a very interesting man. I guess my next question is, I think normally we go off, we ask a lot, of questions. I think I'm going to kind of leave this, one kind of open here. I guess I've had some questions from a friend of mine named Weem, who, when I told him that we were bringing you on the show, he acted like a real fanboy because he knew so much more about, seen so many more of your matches, knew so much more about you than even I did. And one of the things that he had asked was, what were some of your fondest memories of working in the Mid South area?
Some of my fondest memories about the Mid South area.
Yes, sir.
Well, excuse me. That's where I got my first break. I was in Charlotte in the Mid Atlantic area, and I got a call from the booker named Buck Robley, and he needed a mask guy that could be a good heel. And so I did the bill for him. I went down there, but Bill Watts is the owner of Mid South, and I remember I wrestled guys like Ted DiBiase, Paul Orndorff, you name it. I went on Junkyard Dog, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and luckily enough, Bill thought I had a good enough talent. He put the North American Heavyweight title on me, and that was one I had it for over a year. And wrestling with that belt, you take on some of the biggest stars in pro wrestling. And we were wrestling, of course, spot shows, but some of my fonder memories of wrestling like in the Superdome in New Orleans. We had some big shows. Wrestled Dusty Rhodes and Andre the Giant. We beat them for the tag titles, being the Super Destroyer. That was a big fond memory of mine. Me and Jake the Snake Roberts wrestle each other and end up inventing the DDT. That's another fond memory of mine. Wrestling the Junkyard Dog, and I jumped him one night when he come in the ring in New Orleans. I took that chain he had, was choking him, and the guy pulled out a 357 in ringside. If it wouldn't have been for the police officers at ringside, I probably would have been talking to you right now. But that wasn't a fond memory, but that's one I'll never forget. And another guy that I wrestled there a lot was Killer Carl Cox. He was one of the best psychologists in the sport of pro wrestling. And believe me, man, he taught me the inside out of that ring and how to work the crowd and how to get the people wound up and enthused in the match and get them involved in the match. And I just got a great education here, and I had a lot of good memories from Mid-South.
That sounds amazing. Was there ever a moment where you just wanted to walk away from it all?
I'll tell you when there was. I was right before I actually went to Charlotte. I married my first wife, and she's from Charlotte, North Carolina. So I was in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, I believe it was, and I went from there back to Charlotte, and I said, I'm going to stay about 6 months, and then I'm getting out of this business, and I've been at it almost 4 years, and I hadn't got a break on time. I'm going to go back and work in my dad's construction company, which he only had 2 guys working for him. It wasn't like a big construction company. But I was going to go back and just get a regular job. I said, I want to let her visit her folks and all that before we went to Texas, where I'm from. And that's like I was there 3 months, and that's when I got the call from Buck Robley. And I got the break in Mid-South, and I never looked back from there.
One question I have, is how did the whole grappler persona begin? I understand that when it started, there was you and one other wrestler who actually were the grapplers. Can you kind of give us the backstory behind that?
Yeah, I was, first I was in Mid-South. I was in Mid-South as the grappler, right? And I had a run for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then I left. Well, actually, I left and went on to another black territory. And then I came back to Mid-South, and when I came back, they had this young fella named Tony Anthony. And Tony Anthony was a really good worker, but he didn't have like the look, the facial expressions, and so Bill Watts came up with the idea. He goes, he's a good worker, but he needs something, some kind of character, something to get across to the people. And so we said, will you take him on as a partner? And I was glad to do it. The kid was a nice guy. He put on the grappler mask, and we started being the grapplers from there. And we were a tag team for about 3 years, I believe, together. We even, after we took the mask off, wrestled as the Dirty White Boys together, you know?
Yeah, I'm actually familiar with Tony Anthony. probably at the height of his career, was in the heavyweight champion in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which was Jim Cornette's promotion at that time. I understand that actually that Jim Cornette was once your manager. Am I right?
Well, when I was in Memphis territory, it was me and Tony as the grapplers at first, and later on, years later, was Dirty White Boys. But Jim Cornette and Jimmy Hart was our managers. Those guys are tight, like they just had a stable. You know, that's what they did back then. They managed most of the bad guys. And so the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart and Jim Cornette, who was in control, was our managers. I did most of my talking anyway, but they would go to the ring with us, and it was a pleasure because those guys are both great superstars and Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I guess, what was your impression of Jim Cornette? Because these days, Jim Cornette seems almost come across as being just a loudmouth. I understand he doesn't necessarily like the way the business has kind of went in the last 10, 15 years. But what was Jimmy like during those early days?
Well, Jimmy Cornette was, of course, like all of us, on the learning curve. But I'll tell you one thing, he was always a great talent and a great stick man, which I mean a guy could talk on that microphone, and he could get the people riled up, and he could make people buy tickets to come there, put butts in them seats, and want to see him get the hell beat out of him. So he could rouse up the crowd, and that's what counted, because he had that knack for the mic, you know what I mean? He had that gift, and he was just like he was always far as in the back, far as after off the camera, he was always a nice guy to me. He was always a friend, and he was always good to me.
Okay. I'm going to move on. We both kind of brought this up earlier on, about how Jake the Snake Roberts allegedly went off, invented the DDT during a matchup with you. I've heard differing stories on this. What is your take on this? Like, is the story, allegedly Jake and you were having a matchup and he allegedly tripped on your heel or something and hit you with the DDT and claims that is how it was invented. Is there any truth to that?
Well, actually, what happened, okay? 1 second here. What happened, sir, we were in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and it was like, see, when I worked in Mid-South as a grappler the first time, I was brought in to be a wrestling heel. Now, they had guys on top, the Freebirds and Junkyard Dog, and guys like that we call them furniture movers. They would go 10 or 15 minutes in the main event. But Bill Watts, the Cowboy Bill Watts, the promoter, like I said, he used to tell me in the dressing room, and a lot of guys, he said, at the top of my marquee says professional wrestling. And these people are going to get some professional wrestling if they buy a ticket to come to my matches. And so here's Grappler, you're my wrestler. He said, I want you to go no less than 30 minutes every night. Now, I was doing this for about 3 months at the time. I lost 30 pounds already because it was in the summer down south. Now, we're in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and I'm wrestling Jake the Snake Roberts. And we're going out there, and we're wrestling our butts off, and we're sweating like heck. We're both sweating it down. The mat's wet, and we were working a front face lock. Just like you was going to give a guy DDT, but we're in that hole, and I was calling spots out of it and going back and having Jake get that front face lock on me. But we called a spot, and he went to grab me in the front face lock. My feet slipped, his feet slipped. We both went straight down. My head hit the mat, and he landed on his butt. But the people, when we landed, it looked so good. The whole crowd goes, whoa, like that. And I told Jake, I said, Jake, did you hear that? Let's try it again. Well, Jake, that's why they call him the Snake. He's a little devious. He always got to add something to it, so we go do it again. He grabs the front face lock out of the spot, and just as we go down the mat, he slaps me in the back, and it pops so loud, my head hits the mat, and the people go crazy. Whoa, it really came out of the chairs. And so we did that for like 2 or 3 nights because we wrestled each other like 2 or 3 nights in a row.